Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Beach Boys album review. So today, up to number 12 out of 30. Last video, number 13, we checked out 2020 from 1969. That was a very divisive album, a very interesting long review that I had a lot to say about because it was my first one in a while, but I'm kind of feeling back into it now. The album we're looking at today is really the first album of theirs in this series of me reviewing their albums where it's like so good that you could basically, from here on out, you could basically interchange all of the records from number 12 to number 1. Most people will have different rankings for all of these records. For me, the record in today's video, a lot of people will be like, it's too low, but, you know, I'll justify my ranking and I'll give my thoughts. So, without any further ado, today we're looking at an album from 1973, a completely standalone, unique record in the Beach Boys catalog, released on January 8th, I am pretty sure, which is Holland. So, a lot of Beach Boys fans consider this one of their absolute favorite, if not their favorite, and a lot of people are going to be like, dude, why is this not top 5? I'll give my thoughts, but let me just start off by saying a little backstory. So, basically, before this album was recorded, let's go back to 2020. So, 1969. So, the Beach Boys left Capitol after that record, went on Warner Brothers, and they recorded Sunflower, Surf's Up, Carl and the Passions. And, you know, while they're all fucking great albums, they did not chart as well and get as much success as the band wanted, and it really kind of let them down. So, it doesn't really lead into this album at, like, you know, the lack of success didn't really inspire this album anyway, but it was kind of just something in the background of the band's history at the time that was kind of a big deal because, you know, they had been on top of the world in the 60s and then it kind of came all crashing down. So Sunflower charted terribly, which was a crush to their success because that was one of their absolute best albums. Surf's Up, another one of their best albums, charted quite a bit better, but still not anything close to their 60s success. And then Carl and the Passion's So Tough didn't do that great. It did worse than Surf's Up, but did better than Sunflower. So basically, the history for this album kind of starts with Carl and the Passions. So go to 1972, a year before this, and the band had recruited Blondie Chaplin and Ricky Fattar, two dudes from South Africa who were in the band called The Flame. Never listened to them, but if you've listened to them, let me know if they're good or not. Anyway, Carl and Dennis, but mainly Carl, went to a show of theirs, really loved them, brought them into the band, and they were now officially part of the Beach Boys. So the Beach Boys had 7 dudes now. You know, you had Brian, Carl, Dennis, Al, Mike, Bruce, Blondie, and Ricky. So at that point it was 8 people. But in late 72, Bruce actually left the band to go do his own thing, and he would go on in the 70s and find his own success for a while before he would turn back to the band. But anyway, Bruce left, so now you had 7 guys. You had the main 5, and then you had Blondie and Ricky in the band. And with that lineup, they recorded the album Carl and the Passion's So Tough in 1972 to follow up Sunflower and Surf's Up. And as I said, it wasn't as big of a success as Surf's Up, but it did better than Sunflower, and it was an overall really fucking solid album. I did a review on that one, you guys can check it out. But when compared to this one, which I'll get to, it kind of lacked a distinct artistic vision. It was very scattershot, sort of like 2020, different sounds. The title and the album cover didn't fit the actual style of the album, and it was basically kind of just them dipping their feet in the water of this new, more progressive, soulful sound that they had really been looking for and wanting to get into, because they really wanted to break the cliche that the Beach Boys were just a corny band, you know, and they wanted to prove that they can make good music. And, you know, with Sunflower, Surf's Up, and Carl and the Passions, they had proven it so well, but really the general public in America wasn't listening, which is really sad. But anyway, so that album comes out, Carl and the Passions, and it doesn't do as well as I wanted it to, but it still does better than Sunflower. It does not bad. But, you know, they were really fed up with the California scene at the time. You know, as I said, they were just basically forgotten about in America at that point. And recording music in California, you know, they had been in that state at that point for over 10 years, and they just wanted to branch out. So basically what they did is they took a bunch of their studio equipment from LA, from the studios, their gear and everything, flew over to the Netherlands, I think Holland. I'm pretty sure that's the Netherlands. If I'm wrong, correct me. I'm just gonna say Holland because I don't know what actual country that is. I think it's Netherlands. But so they flew over to Holland, and with their gear, and they found a barn somewhere in some town, and they basically renovated it into their own makeshift studio. And it would kind of turn out to being an inconvenience, but at the time it was really what the band needed to get a new footing and a new grasp on what music they wanted to make for their new record. So they basically built this barn into a makeshift studio in Holland, and each of the guys got their own little houses to stay at, and they began work on the new album, which turned out to be this one. So the recording history is very complicated, and it actually turned out, and initially they wanted this album to be, the group, all goes together to a different country and pitches in songs, and they work as a team to make this new record. It didn't really happen. What basically happened is each of the guys kind of had their own thing going on, and they would occasionally work together, but it really just ended up being an album sort of like 2020 in a way, where it was different guys doing different things. Not that the finished product didn't come out more cohesive, because it definitely did. This is one of the most cohesive and just thematically strong albums the Beach Boys ever made. But just in terms of the recording, it's generally pretty messy in terms of who was where at a certain time. So basically that's kind of the backstory behind it. Brian was very absent from the sessions. If you listen to this album, he only has 2 songs on here. He only sings. He doesn't sing lead on any of them, and his amount of actual featured vocals are very, very low. So this is basically an album, just if you want to hear the Beach Boys without Brian Wilson, this is a good album to go to, because he did write 2 songs on here, but he doesn't really appear on them almost at all, and the other guys kind of take over with their vocal abilities and their writing abilities, and the whole middle part of this album is just all the other guys. So without any further ado, I think I should just get in the track list, because as last review, what happened in last review went to 43 minutes on that one. Try not to do that again. I might have to with some of the higher ones, but Holland, we'll see what happens. I'm going to try to keep it under 30, but anyway, so, and I guess I should just mention, so this is an OG press from 1973, I think it was January 8th, as I said. Cool fucking cover, upside down yacht, so if you turn it this way, that's the correct picture, but cool picture, cool title, and the back, the black and white with all the guys, I love the pictures of all of them on here, Al, Brian looks crazy here, Blondie, Dennis, Ricky, Carl, Mike. So, it was the core guys plus the 2 additional dudes like it had been on Carl and the Passions. And I really like the cows and shit in the back. It reminds me of Adam Heartmother by Pink Floyd, like the same kind of cow and field vibe. I mean, it's just a cow, so But album cover's really sick, love it. My copy doesn't have an inner sleeve. Maybe it came with one, but mine doesn't have it. This album, I think, went to number 53? Don't quote me on that. Maybe it was in the 30s where it charted. Maybe it charted like number 30. I don't even remember. It charted better than Carl and the Passions. Not better than Surf's Up, but better than Sunflower as well. So, it did pretty decent. Anyway, so I guess I'll just start with the first song. So, basically, the first song on the record, the lead-off single, and the most well-known song from this record, written by Brian, Sail On Sailor. So this was written by Brian, Van Dyke Parks, and let me see, hold on. Let me just check real quick. So yeah, so it was Brian, a guy named Tandon Ulmer, and Van Dyke Parks, who you guys know from the Smile Sessions. And then the vocals were actually written by Jack Riley, the band's manager at the time, and then a guy named Ray Kennedy. So it was a very collaborative effort by a lot of different people. But basically, the core of it is Brian did the music, and then Jack Riley / Van Dyke did the lyrics. So, while it was Brian's song, it was more of an involved effort. So when I say Brian was pretty absent, that's kind of what I mean. Even for his song on here, it wasn't completely his like it had been in the past. So anyway, this one was released as a single at some point in 1973. I don't know if it was before or after the album. And I can't remember what it was backed with. I'll have to check on that again. But basically all I gotta say is, what a fucking song. This is one of the most underrated and overlooked Beach Boys songs, but for the people that know it, they know how good it is. It basically feels like the Beach Boys found their new sound, that they're completely revamped sound, dude. It's so clean, so just, it feels so much more real than, something on, 2020 or Carl and the Passions. Not saying those aren't great albums, because I fucking love those records, but to me, those records felt more like an experimentation of a sound they wanted to find. They weren't really sure yet. 2020 was more of a transition to Sunflower. Carl and Passions to me was the step one before this album. They needed that record to find the sound they wanted on here. Anyway, Sail On Sailor opens the record. Blondie Chaplin sings the lead. with an amazing fucking backing track by a bunch of guys. You know, I think they had other dudes playing the drums and a bunch of session, maybe not session musicians, but they had a bunch of different guys. It wasn't just the core band like it had been on, like, for example, Smiley Smile or Wild Honey, and then the previous 3 albums before this, same thing, they had different people on them. But what I can say is that for an album opener for this record, amazing fucking song, and one of the strongest Beach Boys songs ever. Is it one of my favorite Beach Boys songs? Personally, no, but I fucking love it. It is so catchy. The sound of it is just so refined. It really fits in with that early 70s, you know, softer rock kind of sound. You know, it's very, very laid back and open and fresh sounding. And, you know, you look at this album cover, see the water, and you just see the browner tones, the more natural kind of aura this album gives off. Sail on Sailor really fits that. It's a much more, you know, just fresh listen. You know, you don't listen to this and are confused what they're going for. You know exactly what they're going for, and in a sense, it really is a concept album, and I'll explain my thoughts on that at the end. But Sail on Sailor, amazing fucking song, amazing melody, super catchy. Blondie's vocals are so good, and it's written so well, and it has such a great energy. So if you haven't heard it, go listen to it. Next comes Steamboat, written by Dennis, and this is one of his 2 songs on the record, but surprisingly he didn't sing on either of them. Carl sings on both, and it starts with Steamboat, which comes after Sail on Sailor, as I said. This one's really good. This one's a lot more chill, mellow, ethereal, almost like a magical vibe. Is it one of my favorites on the record? No, it's a slow burner. You kind of have to really be in the mood for it. It's barely any energy, barely any drums. I don't think there really is any drums. There's some, you know, percussion here and there, but very, very moderate. The beginning is basically all just atmosphere, and I really respect it for what it is. Not one of my favorites, as I said, but I love Carl's voice. The whole ambience it gives to the album is just great. As I said, a magic vibe. Just, I love how it sounds. Dennis wrote it really well. It's super pretty. And then when the harmonies come in, sounds great. So I think Dennis did a really good one on that song. Did a good job on that song. So if you guys like that one, let me know. I enjoy it a lot. Don't get me trying to say that I don't dislike it. It's just, you know, coming after Sail on Sailor, which is just hit it out of the park. This one feels not as grand, but it still follows it up great. Basically, you know, we start with those 2 songs on this record, but where we get into the main chunk of good shit comes on the next 3 songs, which you can pretty much just call one song. So this one is a collaborative effort between Mike and Al, and let me just check real quick to see if anybody else collaborated on it. So it's Mike. Yeah, so it's Mike and Al. So ending off side 1 is 3 different songs combined into one as one piece, basically. Think of a medley like on Abbey Road. This is kind of their take on that. So this is, they entitled it the California Saga. There's 3 parts. There's California Saga Big Sur, The Beaks of Eagles, and then Sunny California, or just California. So this is easily, there's a lot of things I have to say about this specific part of the album. So one of my favorite things about Holland is just the essence of adventure they capture, and for these 3 tracks, dude, oh my god, and it's so much to say, and I'll let you listen to the background for 1 second just to hear what I'm talking about. Mike's fucking a poet. You're like, what the fuck is Mike doing? He's reciting a speech. It's crazy. So basically, this song tells the tale of California, really. It tells the tale of a person, just the essence of life in California in the 1800s, I'm assuming. And it starts off with Big Sur, written by Mike. So Mike actually composed it completely by himself. One of his few solo compositions on any Beach Boys record. And in my opinion, his absolute best song and one of the best songs the Beach Boys ever made, Big Sur. And when I talk about Big Sur, I usually mention the 1970 version recorded in the Surf's Up sessions, which eventually came out last year on Feel Flows. Love the song. But for Holland, they did a completely different thing, just reworked it into being a much more folky, soulful song. And while I prefer the Surf's Up landlocked version, this version is really great too, and I really enjoy it. And if you haven't heard either, or have heard one but not the other, check out this version. Check out the Big Sur version on Field Flows. It's great. Mike's lyrics, his vocals, the production, the sound is just so fucking smooth, and he did such a great job. So I gotta applaud Mike on that one. Really his best song. And You know, I prefer the other version, but this one's just as good. So that's part one of the California Saga. Part two is written by Al, with a basically reciting a poem from some other, 1800s historian dude or whatever, some poet. So this one's called The Beaks of Eagles, and this is usually the least favorite out of the saga by most fans because it is so weird, but to me it's my favorite out of the whole saga because, man, so it starts off super atmospheric with, weird ass keyboard sounds, just a weird ass textured atmosphere, everything. And then it comes in with Mike and Al, they alternate, start reciting a poem basically over just super grand, just picture, if you guys watch the fucking Backyardigans, or just a show like that, just imagine like a cowboy movie where you're in a canyon with the cacti and the tumbleweeds, like that's what I imagine, like, just the instruments they use, very open sounding, just super like Western, and they recite this fucking poem about a mother eagle in California, it's really crazy. I really can't explain the whole thing. Just go listen to it. But the story is super cool. It's one of the most unique things the Beach Boys ever did, easily. And once it gets into the choruses where, it picks up into an actual song, Al starts singing. The energy is great. One of my favorite lyrics in any Beach Boys songs is on the second chorus. Spilled down the hill, a wagon load of bodies lay scattered. A Beach Boys song says that. Fucking crazy, right? Love it, dude. I love when they do weird shit like this, and I'll get to why this album isn't higher because I have so much praise about this one, but at the same time there's some things that hold it back, so I'll explain. But as for the California Saga, especially Beaks of Eagles, also Big Sur, absolutely fucking beautiful and unique and creative, and the tracks sound so good. All the instruments are so crisp, the drums are amazing. All the other instruments are just super well played, the vocals are amazing, and it leads into the last part of the California Saga, ending off side one. This one's just called California, I think. Let me check real quick. Yeah, so it's just California Saga, California, written by Al. This one's really cool. So this one to me is like a throwback to California Girls. It has the same dun 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 dun, that same kind of bass note, the bass line, and you can hear it in the background. Just like a nice upbeat vibe. Mike does a great job on the vocals. Fun fact, the only prominent, clear Brian vocals on this record are the intro to this song when he's like, on my way to sunny California. That's Brian, and that's the only time you'll ever clearly hear him on this album. There's other parts in different songs where you could kind of pick him up if you're paying attention, but if you just want to hear Brian on this record, that's really all you're going to be able to hear him as. So that's kind of why I say this was a Beach Boys band effort album, not just a Brian Wilson album. Same with Sunflower, Surf's Up, and Carl and the Passions. So what's why I love this period of the band, man. But California Saga, those three different tracks, I like the Beak of Eagles the best, and then Big Sur, and then California, just because I like the stylistic elements of the prior two. But dude, just as a whole, it's so fucking complete and well written. And it feels like they were going for something, then they actually achieved it. You think a Smile, and you think of what they're going for, but they never reached it, which is really sad. And even though the remnants of Smile are still my favorite fucking music of all time, it's still not completed, so it still could have been better. But for this, they found the sound they're going for, and it really works. And with Sail on Sailor, Steamboat, and then those three tracks, the theme is so consistent. And, I'm gonna actually stretch this review out as long as it needs, so whatever. But at the end, I will get to my whole concept album explanation, what I think of this record. Anyway, side one, fucking fantastic. Getting to side two, man, so the first song of side two is my favorite on the record, The Traitor. So this one was written by Carl, and in my opinion, this is his finest moment ever. I'm pretty sure it's solo, but maybe Jack Riley helped him out. I'm not too sure. Let me check real quick. But, let's see. Yeah, so Carl and Jack Riley, as I said, he was the manager. They wrote the song together. I'm pretty sure if Jack Riley did anything, it was the lyrics, or just helped with the lyrics or something. But man, you can hear it in the background. I'll just let it play. So good. So fucking good. And then I'm gonna let it pause for a second when it gets to the good part because I love it. But man, okay, it's in a while. But The Traitor, okay. Carl's vocals, so fucking good, catchy, consistent, melodic. The melody is so strong, and the energy is just perfect. The harmonies are great. The sound song's great. the song's great. The song sounds great. Anyway, about halfway through, takes a complete 180 to a beautiful, softer section, and it's just super pretty and just gorgeous. And it's a decently long song, especially for the Beach Boys, over 5 minutes. But I'll let you hear this part. The brushes, on the drums, Carl's vocals, it's so good. So yeah, basically it's just a beautifully fucking written song. Probably, as I said, probably my favorite song Carl ever wrote. And it's sad because he didn't really write that much, but when he did, he wrote some great fucking songs. And he proved himself with Long Premised Road and Field Flows on Surf's Up, which are amazing songs. Out of his big three, including this one, those are some of his best too. But this one feels the most grand and the most well written in my opinion. So personally, I think it's my favorite song on the record, or the best song on the record, because I think it captures that vibe of what they're going for as a complete whole, the best. So love it so fucking much. But then here's where we get to my problems. Now, I think there's 3 more songs following this one, pretty sure. Let me just check. So yeah, 3 more songs. So I don't love them. I really, really, really like all the songs ending off this record. But personally, this is one of those records where the tail end of side 2 kind of trails off, and this is kind of where my problems with the album lie. So the 3 last songs on the record are Leaving This Town, Only With You, and Funky Pretty, all written by different guys. So Leaving This Town is actually super interesting. It is a complete prog rock song written by Blondie and Ricky, their only compositional credit, their only song on this album. And a lot of people love this one. I really like it. It's just so different for the Beach Boys. If you heard this without knowing who it was, you'd be like, this is not the fucking Beach Boys at all. This is some other, 70s prog band or something like that. Like a soulful prog band. And you're like, you hear it and you're like, holy shit, this is the Beach Boys. And it's crazy because it is just a labor of love from Blondie and Ricky. They just made it themselves, and they were really underappreciated because they brought a whole new level of sound and musical complexity to the band that I feel like people have forgotten nowadays. But listen to the song, just the keyboard fucking solo, just the atmosphere, it's pretty long, and I think that's kind of part of the reason. I think it drags on a little bit too long, and I think they kind of stick on the same melody and theme for a bit too long. One of my favorite things about the Beach Boys is how concise and to the point they are. They never waste a note. One of my complaints with the song, not that it's a bad thing, it's just not personally my thing. When it comes to music, I like this, enjoying every single second of the music I listen to, and the Beach Boys, just all of pretty much 95% of their songs are just to the point, and they never grow old to me. This one, it kind of feels like it drags on a bit too long. It does have that prog mood, so if you're super into prog, you're gonna love it. But and you can hear it in the background. A mellow kind of proggy thing. Once it gets to the solo part, it gets a little more prog. And I'm not trying to say it's like progressive craziness. It's more progressive for a Beach Boys track. So it's very interesting. But anyway, what I was saying was that, it does feel like it kind of drags on the same theme for a little bit too long. And I don't get tired of it. I never skip it. It's just I'm like, I don't enjoy and love every single second. Even though it is a great song, but personally one of my least favorites on the album. Followed up by a song from Dennis called Only With You, an absolutely fucking beautiful ballad that doesn't fit on the record at all. That's my only thing with it. Great fucking song. Carl sings it. It's majestic and gorgeous. I love it. But, you hear this album and you hear these very soulful, Western, which is funny because this album's called Holland, and they're in a different country, but it's the most American sounding album they ever made, honestly. But, what I was saying was that, you get this very American sounding Western album, very rugged, raw, naturey record, and then you get like a beautiful love song that's just really sweet and like simple. And I have no problem with the song at all. It's just it doesn't fit in with the mood personally, and it kind of messes up the flow, especially at the end. So great song, yes, Dennis did a great job, Carl sang it amazingly, but kind of is jarring with the rest of the mood, which Leaving the Town does fit the mood perfectly. It's just the sound of it isn't my personal favorite, But that being said, both fucking great songs, so you'll find something great out of them. Ends off on one of the weirdest fucking songs the Beach Boys ever did. Brian's second credit on the album, which I'm pretty sure he just wrote completely by himself. I'm sorry, I have to keep checking because I cannot remember. So, okay. So it's called Funky Pretty, and Brian wrote it with Mike and Jack Riley. So it was collaborative, but mainly Brian did the music, you know. I think Mike and Jack probably just worked on the melody and lyrics a little bit, but a lot of people love this one, have it cited as one of their favorite Beach Boys tracks ever, and I could see that. It's super cool. The vibe with the synths and just like the overall just strangeness of it is super unique, especially on this record. But for me, it just feels like an off note, especially for the ending. And I'm not saying off in a way that is bad, because it's a really cool song that I enjoy. I love Blondie's vocals as he sings it too. See, he sings 3 songs in this album. He sings Sail on Sailor, Leaving This Town, and Funky Pretty. And then Mike and Al kind of sing, I think, the second half of Funky Pretty. More of the guys start to go on, but mainly Blondie is like the first half. Anyway, what I was saying was that, while it's a really cool song, it's such a different vibe to the rest of the record, and it kind of just feels out of place, you know. Only With You did as well, just because it was a love song on a rock record like this, and Funky Pretty is just a crazy, weird, you know, synthy, funky pop song. So it's kind of just like interesting. Not a bad one at all. There's a certain guy on the Beach Boys subreddit that has this as his favorite Beach Boys song, so I can respect that. But for me, it kind of feels like the album ends off on a weird note. I wish there was like another song on here that kind of fit the same thing as Sail on Sailor to kind of end off the album on a concise note. But, you know, it doesn't really do that. You know, with the last 3 songs, my interest kind of just fades away a little bit, just because Leaving This Town's a little too long for me, Only With You doesn't fit, and then Funky Pretty is just, it's just funky. It's funky for the album. It fits with it, but it's just weird, you know? You know what I'm saying? So, that's the album. So, there's, 9 songs, but let me try to count this again. Yeah, 9 songs. So, I don't know exactly how long it is. I don't know if it's one of their longer records, but basically, Holland is an amazing fucking record, and honestly, objectively, I think this is like a top... objectively, this is a top 10 Beach Boys albums if you're looking at this from a critic's point of view, just because the musical inspiration and sound they went for and achieved is just so unlike anything else they ever did, and it was such a complete statement. So, I'll give it that. It's a fucking amazing album, and if you don't understand why I put it relatively low and on the ranking, I completely understand, because this is a great album. But for me personally, I love the pop sound that the Beach Boys got on their best work. You know, for me, the catchy, upbeat, just not even upbeat, but just the catchy short, concise music that sticks with you is why I love the Beach Boys so much. And I'm not saying that I don't love this album, because I fucking love it. It's great, and it's one that I listen to all the time. But it just has a more, not conventional, but a more standard rock sound compared to what the Beach Boys are usually known for. And for that reason, stylistically, I prefer a lot of their other albums over this one. But as a record itself, I think it's a pure, you know, high 9 out of 10. You know, if you really enjoy the last 3 songs and you love them, I'd have no problem giving this record a 10. For me, I'd probably give it like a 9.5, just because I do believe the last few tracks are a little inconsistent with the theme. But as a whole, sonically it works, even though there's, you know, a few things here and there, but overall it's fucking great. And here's where I'll get to my whole concept album thing. So, to me, this album is a concept album that was never intended to be one. Maybe it was, but I've never heard them say that. But to me, all the songs, you can kind of piece them together. Even the ones that don't really fit, I kind of picture it in a certain way. So, I'll just kind of do my explanation. So, Sail on Sailor opens the record. I kind of imagine a dude, a sailor on the ocean in his boat, you know, just goes out and he does a journey for himself and leads into Steamboat. He's in his boat, right? And then, you know, the whole mystical vibe of that song, I kind of imagine him in like a foggy, darker part of the river or ocean that he's in, right? Then he goes into California Saga, wherever he was sailing from. You know, imagine he was sailing from Holland, right, to California. He makes it to California, and then Big Sur kicks in. He lands in Big Sur, you know, with his guitar, you know, goes on the shore, starts playing, right? You know, he goes south, you know, to Southern California more. That's where the Beaks of Eagles come in. He learns the history of the whole territory, right? And then California comes in, where he goes to like a celebration, and, you know, he gets with all the townsfolk and whatever, and, you know, kind of celebrates their whole life there. Side 2 starts with the trader. He meets a dude, you know, he kind of builds his life there, and he kind of starts, you know, meeting more people, and there's a trader there. Let's just say he trades shit with him to do whatever, you know, theory, right? Leads into leaving this town. He meets someone, and he's like, damn, like let's say he meets a girl or whatever. So he's like, damn, I love this girl. So he's like, you know, as much as I love this place, I need to get out of here, you know, do something else with my life. So he gets with this girl, leads into Only With You, and, you know, he kind of has like a whole love with her, right? They're crazy people. He's a sailor, she's whatever, and then it leads into Funky Pretty, and they just have a funky relationship, and it's good, and he thinks she's a funky girl and it's pretty. Weirdest fucking explanation slash theory you'll ever hear for this record, but I've thought about that so much with this one. So, you know, when I listen to this album, I kind of make myself like it better by thinking of that story, thinking of a sailor dude who goes through an entire story through the songs of Holland. So if you ever need something to kind of get you in the mood of Holland, kind of think of that, you know, make your own story with it. I don't know, but for me, that's kind of what I think of. I just think of a concept album kind of thing. And, you know, we'll probably never get an answer to whether or not they actually intended for this to be a complete concept album. But for me, I like thinking of it that way. So overall, Holland is a fucking amazing record that I think for most Beach Boys fans, having it in the top 5 would be completely understandable because it's a work of art, and I'm not going to deny that. Any complaints I have are with the last 3 songs just really either not being my style, not fitting the theme of the record, or just being weird in terms of the sonic aspect of the entire record, like the sound of it. But they're still great songs, and, you know, I'd give this like a 9.5, but, you know, I could see a 10. So for me, Holland, fucking amazing record. I love it. But the story doesn't end here. Now, packaged with the original LP in 1973 was a completely unique and weird musical experience that not a lot of Beach Boys fans know of, but it is one of the most creative and interesting things Brian has ever done. And if you're wondering, wait, so if Brian is the main dude in the Beach Boys, then why didn't he only have 2 songs on this record and really didn't do much else? That's because, with the original LP in 1973, included was an EP written entirely by Brian called Mount Vernon and Fairway. So you look at this and you're like, what the fuck is this cover? And it's just the same cover on both sides. It's like a little transistor radio, you know, like the knobs, you have the speaker, the little dialer thing. This was actually, Brian drew this, so this was his art. This was included with the original album, and, you know, if you heard this back in 73, you'd be like, what the fuck? So, you know, Holland, right? Very, very awesome, you know, rock album, you know. It's smooth, it's soulful, it has its more progressive moments, it has its more, you know, Beach Boys moments with the California Saga, and then it has unique different things with, like, Leaving This Town, right? This, the EP included with the record, is just something completely different. So, Brian, you know, while they're in Holland recording the album, while they're in their own houses, Brian a lot of the time would stay out of the studio from the other guys because he was just, that was really when he was in his reclusive period. It was mainly after they came home to LA to finish the album. Kind of backtracking right now. So Holland was started in actual Holland. They recorded most of the backing tracks, and then they went back to LA to finish the vocals and everything because it was too expensive. They spent, like, in today's money, Holland took about 1.5 million to make, which is fucking crazy. Anyway, so during this time, what I was trying to say about the EP is that Brian was kind of entering his reclusive phase, and he was kind of fucking losing it. And he was basically in this house in Holland, or wherever he was staying, coming up with new shit. And he had an idea to make a fairy tale with a narrator and make it about a princess, or not a princess, a prince in a castle in a faraway land, and just make it a magical, fictional fairy tale. And you listen to this, you know, it's a 7-inch disc. What's really funny about it, it's, you know, it's called Mount Vernon and Fairway, but if you look at the actual disc, let's see if you can even see it. I'm gonna try to let you guys see this. So if you look right there, under where it says a fairy tale, it says, please listen to the dark. And I recommend it because this is one of, if not the most interesting thing the Beach Boys ever put out. You know, it's never been reissued. The only physical release it ever had was with the original Holland album. You know, maybe if they made like a CD reissue, they put it, you know, as bonus tracks or whatever, but the only way you can get the EP is by, you know, finding a seller who includes it with the Holland album, which I had to do. And Basically, this is one of the weirdest things you'll ever hear. It is as I said, a fairy tale about it's called the Pied Piper, and he lives in a mystical land. You know, he lives in a mansion in a castle because his family's royalty. And one night he has like this transistor radio because that's what they had back in the day, and it starts making noises. And then he goes in the forest to see what it's doing, and it's a fucking like Peter Pan dude comes out of the radio, this magic dude, and he plays like the most beautiful music this prince has ever heard. And he comes back every night to keep hearing from him, and then his siblings find out, and then eventually the parents like throw away the radio, and then he gets it back. The prince tries to listen for the Pied Piper again, but he doesn't hear him, and basically he just always will live on remembering this crazy magical wizard fucking dude who came out of the radio playing crazy music. So weird, but you listen to it, it's magical. The piano aura, synthesizers, the atmosphere is fucking beautiful. I so recommend you just putting headphones on, closing your eyes, and listening to this at night after Holland, because it'll paint a picture in your mind of where they are. You'll picture the castle and the forest and the room and the radio and the guy and it's crazy. Jack Riley, the manager, he narrates it, and his voice, his very deep, suits it very well for narration. When the Pied Piper actually talks, Brian does a fucking goblin voice, super cool, and almost nobody knows of this thing because it's so obscure. It came out bundled with a record that already wasn't like a huge success anyway, but it being a fairy tale bonus inclusion, which was only see, Holland itself isn't one of their greatest well-known records. It's a great record, but in terms of popularity, it still didn't even chart that well. So people may or may not even know of Holland, because that's a start. Like, that's where you're gonna have to know if you even know that record. But this EP was only included with very specific pressings of Holland in '73. Later pressings didn't include it. So for you to know what this is, you either have to be super diehard on the Beach Boys or have gotten Holland and had this album included with it. So I'm just imagining if you heard this when it came out, man, it would have fucking blown your mind. It's amazing. It's absolutely fucking amazing. And it's one of the reasons why I kind of, if this was part of Holland, if this was like actually on the album in some sort of way, which I wouldn't want it to be because it wouldn't fit, but like, I love this so much more than Holland. I love Holland, don't get me wrong, but this is just such a unique fucking oral experience. It is an experience that you'll never hear anything else like it. So there's a lot of things to say, but basically all I'm going to say is it's a fairy tale, a mystical fairy tale by the Beach Boys, written by Brian. Not even any really songs on it. It's just a fairy tale narration thing. So if you never heard it, go listen to it. Just go on Holland on any streaming service, and then it'll be like the last like 6 tracks or whatever. Mount Vernon and Fairway. Fucking amazing. And this is a 10 out of 10. It's not part of the album, but it was included with it. So to me, love it. It's just crazy. So as a bundle, this is what you would have gotten in '73 if you were getting the album. And my consensus on the whole thing. So I'm not going to include Mount Vernon and Fairway with Holland for the ranking because I don't think that would be fair. It's not part of the album, and it would unfairly skew the whole catalog ranking that I'm doing. It's just its own separate thing. I happen to love it a lot, and it's actually, I prefer it to Holland. I would listen to it over Holland. But just Holland as an album, because that's what we're here for. That's what this review is about. Holland released January 8th, I'm pretty sure, maybe it was January 10th, early January, 1973. Fucking amazing album. The musicianship, the vocals, the production, the new ideas they came up with, amazing. And they were going in the right direction. And basically after this, even though the album didn't really do that great commercially, but artistically it took them to a new level. But Endless Summer, as you guys might know, it was released the year after in '74, went to #1 in the country, blew the band back up. That's when the whole fucking nostalgia, retro act came back on, and they become a full-time touring band. That's when they made 15 Big Ones and Love You, and that's the whole Brian's back era. So, in a sense, Holland was really the last, classic Beach Boys album. It wasn't, you think classic Beach Boys, you probably just think of 60s Beach Boys, but in terms of the Beach Boys giving a shit, this is basically the last time they ever did that, and it's really sad. Besides Love You and Adult Child, which I'll get to, this was really the last time. This was in the 11 years, well, the 12 years they had been together when they made this record, they had an album every single year. From 62 to 73, they had an album every single year. And this was the last album in that streak. 74, 75, they didn't make any studio albums. It was until 1976 when they would make 15 Big Ones, their next record. And it's kind of sad because this is pretty much like one of the last, to a lot of people, this is the last great Beach Boys album, which I don't agree with. There's at the very least, one more amazing one after this, but I can see where they're coming from because this is the last amazing rock album the Beach Boys ever made. And overall, from the sound to the artistic innovation to the entire thematic cohesiveness of it, Holland is a fucking amazing record that I'd give like a 9.5 out of 10. Personally, I prefer, 11 more records over this one. Just the more rock-oriented sound just isn't my thing personally when compared to the pop, melodic, super beautiful sound of most of the Beach Boys stuff. So that's kind of why I prefer a lot of their other records. But, let me know what you guys think about Holland in the comments. If you guys have this one higher in the ranking, I completely understand. Just personally for me, I don't really have many problems with it. Basically no problems. Musically it's perfect. But just the stylistic choices in the songs, I just prefer their poppier stuff, So, Holland, number 12 out of 30. I almost forgot how many albums they had. This was a long-ass review again, but I think I got pretty much everything out of the way. So, basically, these are the two things that we talked about, but focusing on this one. So, Holland is a great fucking record. If you're really a fan of that 70s rock sound, progressive kind of stuff, listen to it. I recommend it. It's super interesting, unique, one of a kind. And this was the last album that Blondie and Ricky were ever in for the band, and then they left and never came back. Blondie still tours with Brian. I saw him with Brian when I saw him last year, but other than that, their artistic endeavors with the band were over after this record. So overall, Holland is a classic, a great fucking album, and one of the strongest in the Beach Boys catalog for sure. But personally, due to the style of it, it's a little lower for me, but that doesn't mean anything because I still love this album and I listen to it all the time. So that's about it. So let me know what you guys think about Holland in the comments. I think I did a pretty decent job with this review. And I'll see you guys in the next one. So just let me know what you think, and yeah, see you guys in the next review. Peace out.